channel. Today I'm going to be swatching out these 24 tube paints, the gouache, and I got them in my last art haul, which was my last video, so if you haven't seen that, check that out. These are a value set of paints for beginners, so I'm just making out a swatch chart so that I can swatch them out so you can see all the different colours. I did try to find some pigment information for these colours, but unfortunately there is no pigment information. There's no information on whether they're light fast, so I can't tell you about that, and I can't tell you how these pigments have been made, so I don't know if they include cadmium or anything like that, so I have no idea whether they have that sort of toxic element. So these pigments do have a oily consistency, which is not what I was expecting. I would say that's more what I would expect from an acrylic gouache, but they don't say acrylic gouache on the packaging, so they're just a bit of an unusual texture and not quite what I was expecting. As you can see, the paints are really vibrant colours, so the pigmentation is really good on these paints, so that's really positive. Some of the paints have separated in the tube, but just with a bit of a mix with your paintbrush you can get them to a pretty good consistency for painting, so that's not a problem. I am having a little problem with wetting these paints though. They seem to dry really quickly, and although I've put some water next to the paint, it's sort of really hard to activate it. Because it's dried out already by the time I just put a little bit of water next to the swatch. That's a bit unusual for kind of gouache or watercolour. Usually you get a lot of flow, the pigment flows into the water, but these seem to kind of leave a harsh line behind because they're not reactivating with the water, they're drying out straight away, kind of like an acrylic really. So a bit of an unusual kind of consistency, I would say, and again might make them a bit difficult to work with, especially if you're a beginner. So here are all the colours swatched out for you. There's some really lovely pigmentation here, some really strong colours. I'm really pleased with the pigmentation. There's a really nice range of colours. This vermilion and orange are really similar though, so not very distinct. Same with the brilliant red and primary red, quite similar. But there's a lovely range of greens here and some lovely earth tones. And this cream colour is very like buff titanium. I wanted to show you this because these tubes are sealed, and to open them you have to kind of pierce the film with the top of the cap, which is fine, but if you use too much pressure you will end up with some paint in the cap. So now I'm going to be using these gouache paints to make a Ghibli painting. This is just a sketch that I've made in my sketchbook. It's of the Night Walker from Princess Mononoke. So I have ultramarine blue and some black, and I've mixed those to make an indigo colour. I'm using watered down ultramarine and the indigo colour to make the night sky. And I'm just trying to get a wash of this all over really. But I'm going to leave the central area where the Nightwalker is a bit lighter because he's the lightest thing in this whole landscape. So I'm going to leave sort of like a patch there in the middle which is lighter. I'm also going to leave a little area around the moon because that's also lighter. And so I'm not going to go as close to the moon with the indigo colour. I thought to give these gouache paints a really good try and to really understand them, I would need to paint with them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing a little bit of fun art, a little bit of a sketch in my sketchbook, just to try them out properly. I'm finding they're drying quite patchy, so I'm just trying to smooth everything out with a wide flat brush. Just going over with indigo, trying to darken, but still leaving the central area much lighter. So I'm adding some ultramarine into this mix just to make it a little bit more blue, and I'm going to be using ultramarine and this indigo colour just to add in some shadow and mid-tone to this figure of the Nightwalker. He has some blue patches, so I'm just adding those in now. So I'm adding in the foreground. This is in front of the Nightwalker. He's sort of walking in between the tops of the canopy of these this valley with trees. So he's in between. I'm using the pure white paint to add in his edges. He's glowing on the outside and therefore he's white around the edge, which is why he'll really pop out of this darker landscape. Well, eventually. He also has these kind of, well, they're like horns, but also could be like tree branches, sort of at the end of his elbow and on his head. He is, of course, the Nightwalker. In the daytime, he's the spirit of the forest. He goes through a transformation at night in the moonlight. Princess Mononoke is really one of my very favourite Ghibli films. I do love the fact that it's about humanity trying to live side by side with nature. It's really about how perhaps we shouldn't do battle with nature, we shouldn't fight nature, but find a way to coexist with nature. It's a wonderful story, would very much recommend it if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure lots of people will have. It's a beautiful film. The Nightwalker has these swirly markings, so I'm adding those in with ultramarine. He has them on his arms and on his torso. They make him quite striking and distinctive. So now I'm trying to add in some dark clouds. I'm using a paint mix with quite a lot of black in it. I am struggling to get these paints to kind of suspend in water properly. They really dry out very quickly, which is not like gouache or watercolour. Normally, gouache and watercolour, you add a bit of water and you can reactivate paint well after it's dry. But these paints just don't want to do that. Finding that they dry out. It's not really a problem if you're going to do lots of painting where you're not doing washes. But if you're somebody who does lots of landscapes and skies and you wash with the paint, you may find them tricky. So now I'm using a really fine brush to add in some more white to make it more opaque. It's a really great brush for details. I am managing to blend these paints. If you blend straight away with water, I find that I can blend them. But like I say, they do dry super quickly, so you'll have to be quite quick about it. Now I'm going in with my Gelly roll pen. I just thought it would be easier to add in these little tiny dots with my gel pen. So that's what I'm doing. So all in all, I think I would recommend these paints if you're someone who's going to use mixed media, where you will do your washes and things in watercolour and maybe add in some opaque layers with gouache. I think they'll be absolutely fine for that. I think if you're trying to do lots of landscapes with them and washes, I think they might be tricky. But here you are, some swatches and a painting so you can see what they're like. So I hope it's helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye.